Hello, everyone. My name is Samson Adewale, and I am a cybersecurity student in the ECE 8813. I am going to be presenting an interesting research paper titled "2Scambaiter," which is centered around understanding the targeted Nigerian scams using Craiglist online market platform. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the Department of Computer Science at University of Maryland, the Department of Computer Science at George Mason University, and Zap Fraud Solutions for supporting and helping to facilitate this research paper. And of course, the authors, Young Sam Paul, Jacka Jones, Damon McCoy, Elaine Shee, and Marcus Jacobson, who all worked diligently to conduct this research. So let's briefly go over the agenda and flow of this presentation. First off, I'll provide some introduction and goal of this study. Then I'll discuss the main problems. I will discuss some of the criteria that have to be considered for the study to be successful, and also issues encountered along the way. Then I will wrap up with the results and provide a brief summary at the end. Nigerian scams, which is also popularly known as 419 scams or advanced fee fraud, is a type of scam that pretty much involves scammers sending targeted emails to the users of various online market or dating platforms in an attempt to defraud them using the offerings of those platforms. These scams have basically evolved from simple email messages to more sophisticated attacks. Now, because these operations are leveraging the online platforms that the targeted user are familiar with, they are more likely to fall victim. The goal of the 3-month study that began on April 15th, 2013, was to better understand the economy of the Nigerian scam market and find effective intervention points. The writers of this paper focused their research around fake payment scams targeting users on Craigslist, and they were able to build an automated data collection system they termed magnetic honeypot advertisements that allowed them to post fake advertisements to Craigslist to entice scammers to send them malicious emails that they would then analyze and get a better understanding of how the scammers operate. I will go into a bit more details about the data collection system in the next 2 slides. Basically, the main problem here is that Nigerian scams, aka 419 scams, have pretty much taken over the online market. Around the world, these scams have cost people more than $3 billion. dollars. Also, the users that are affected usually would have to face a significant level of emotional and also psychological distress. Like I mentioned previously, these scam attempts used to be simple, untargeted email spam that could be easily filtered by any good email protection. But nowadays, these scammers are getting more clever and advanced in their operations. This means that not fully understanding how these scammers operate is a pretty significant problem. How can we try to stop them without first analyzing their operation and underground economy? And that is what this paper aims to accomplish. Craiglist is one of the most popular online market websites that averages over 60 million monthly users just in the US alone, and is a platform filled with these scammers. Now, while Craigslist do provide some level of protection against scam by filtering out suspicious and fraudulent posting on their platform, very little is done to protect users from receiving scam replies in their posts, which most scammers have been taken advantage of. The issue pretty much created an opportunity for the researchers to present an in-depth measurement study with the hopes of better understanding the underground economy of these Nigerian scams, and also basically to seek effective intervention points. With this came the magnetic honeypot advertisement, which was created as an automated data collection system and was focused on selling a variety of goods on Craigslist and observing the scammer's behavior. The automated honeypot posted 1,376 advertisements over 60 large and small cities, and were also created to attract scammers while repelling legitimate users. This was done by deliberately making the ads specifically unattractive to real users by, for example, listing a used iPad at a higher price than a new one. Another step the researchers took was to choose and post goods among a list of popular items on Amazon to ensure that the goods they were selling on their fake ads could easily be bought from Amazon or anywhere else. Because the scammers might be using bots to crawl Craigslist or automate their response process, they might not carefully check the content of each post. An automated conversation engine was built inside of the Honeypot platform to basically perform linguistic analysis of incoming emails from scammers and automatically engages them in several rounds of communication leading up to the actual fraud attempt. The inbox of all the email used for Craigslist accounts are periodically checked by the automated engine, where it then reads all the unread messages. This automated process basically helped reduce manual efforts required of the researchers and allow them to focus their time on properly analyzing the data and the results. Questions like where are the scammers located? How do the scam factories operate? And what features can be used to distinguish a scam email versus a legitimate email were some of the questions that the researchers sought to get out of this study. To answer the first question from the previous slide, where are the scammers located? The researchers needed to be able to collect the IP address of a scammer. But because only the email header information is available, the researchers could not fully rely on obtaining the scammer true sources that way. The solution for this issue was to have the automated engine embed an external image link into the generated response to a received scam email. The link destination was a web server under the researcher's control that is unique to the corresponding post and also collects the IP address of the scammers that click on that image link. Ethics had to be considered because this experiment basically involved human subjects. Several controls had to be put in place to prevent any harm to participants. The researchers also had to address concerns about legitimate Craigslist users who may fall for this and possibly send payments. A policy was created to ensure legitimate victims are made aware of the test and refunded back their payment if a case like that happened, and thankfully it did not. The research team also addressed privacy concerns by limiting the use of collected raw data to emails, IP addresses, and text from the messages. Other data that discloses the actual identity of the scammers or their physical addresses were kept private. As you can see from this example with the automated engine, this is the flow of a typical conversation initiated by scammers. The scammer sent an email in response to the post asking if it is available. Then the automated engine responds back to the scammer saying it is available. The scammer then requests PayPal information, and the automated engine provides a fake PayPal notification. The scammer then provides a shipping address and then sends a separate email PayPal notification. Once the study was completed and analyzed, the results were pretty interesting. First of all, the researchers observed 965 IP addresses over 22 countries, and the total number of accesses to the image hosting server from those IPs were 7,759. So these scammers usually clicked on the image link an average of 8 times per scammer IP. The geolocation graph shows that 38% of the scammers were most likely located in the United States, while 50% of the scammers were located in Nigeria. This did not take into account the use of VPN and other proxy-like technologies to hide their true locations. Using all the IP addresses collected, the team cross-checked the IP address with a publicly available blacklist called Project Honeypot. Project Honeypot contains user-reported spam IP addresses and scam generators which were reported to be malicious, as well as gray-listed IPs that have been detected but not confirmed yet to be malicious. 40% of the IP addresses the team collected were blacklisted by Project Honeypot. 14% of the IP addresses were gray-listed, and nearly 2% were confirmed to belong to a web crawler, such as MSN search engines. As you can see from the top 20 list, all but one of the IPs are from Nigeria, and the lone US IP was later identified to be a crawler. The total number of emails received during the experiment was 19,204, and the number of emails sent was 9,902. Among the total of the 19,204 emails received, 15,270 were first responses. Among those first responses, the filter determined that 13,115 represented scam-related activities, whereas the remaining included spams and fake PayPal payment emails and emails delivered from the service providers. As a result, the system basically attracted 9.6 scam trials, which were first scam responses per ad. It's also pretty important to know that majority of the source email addresses used by the scammers are disposable and potentially automated, meaning that they can be easily discarded and replaced by the blacklist as they are blacklisted on sites. Therefore, 2,410 email accounts, that is over 50% of total email accounts observed, were used in only one thread. Majority of the scammers that were observed used Gmail as their email source provider. In fact, 65% did, followed by another 10% who used Microsoft Hotmail and Live. Now, if you're looking for a worldwide market share, Yahoo takes the lead, but in this study, only accounted for 3.5 of the email addresses observed. The widespread use of Gmail correlates to the prices of bulk email accounts on the black market. Many phone verified accounts or PVA sellers on the black market sell Gmail accounts for a price higher than any other emails such as Yahoo or Microsoft. For example, a PVA seller sells 1,000 Gmail accounts for $90, 1,000 Yahoo accounts for $15, 1,000 Hotmail accounts for $5, and 1,000 AOL accounts for $50. Despite Google being more expensive, scammers use it the most. And this is widely because Gmail is the only email service provider who supports free IMAP and SMTP services, compared to Yahoo that charges $20 for the same services. IMAP and SMTP are necessary for scammers since they deal with massive amounts of emails. Gmail also hides the IP address of email senders. And because the scammers are working underground, they would want to hide their IP addresses so they do not expose themselves and possibly avoid filtering by the email service providers of the recipients. Some more results from the research. Aligned with the overall goal of the study to understand how these scammers operate, the researchers observed some of their patterns. They looked at the distribution of scams received during various times of the day, response delay of the scammers, and other factors that affect the scammer's response rate. First, they observed that the peak time of both first and second responses, which was between 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. UTC, largely overlaps the business hours in Nigeria. They also discovered an interesting pattern where the scammers seem to prefer a specific product category, such as auto parts, over others. The reasoning for this observation has been left to be figured out in future works. One interesting question was whether the scam process was automated and to what extent. The researchers combined various things such as inter-arrival time for the same email address, the use of templated responses, and other clues to conclude that automation was in fact being used, but not for the entire process. In order to discover how prevalent these scam organizations infected Craiglist and determine the scope of their operations, the researchers classified the email messages into groups based on similar attributes and discovered the 10 top groups with the most threads. 48% of the scam attempts that were observed can be traced back to one of the top 10 groups that were observed. The groups have been targeting ads in different classes of goods and geographic regions on Craigslist. Analysis shows that the top 10 groups operate almost over all the cities which ads were posted to, and the groups also responded to ads from all the categories of products that were advertised. Almost all the top 10 groups had an extremely high ratio ranging from 86.9% to 100% of threads whose source email address is different from the reply to address. Looking at the chart, we can see group 10 had an 86.9 ratio, which was an anomaly until it was discovered that a single email address was used for both the source and the reply to addresses. The conclusion of these groups is that 9 of them are more sophisticated in their separation of initial ad inquiries and transition to scam attempts, thus successfully separating the two in order to keep their clean accounts and personal information off blacklists. In contrast, the other groups appear not to care about the separation. They are working on a volume basis using the same email addresses and phone numbers to finalize their scam attempts throughout the negotiation process. Each fake ad was posted in one of the categories of either cell phone, computer, jewelry, or auto parts. At most, one ad per category per city was posted every 48 hours. This makes about 80 ads per 48 hours in total. The prices of the product used in these ads range from $80 to $7,000. Remember, I mentioned that 1,376 fake magnetic honeypots ads were posted in total. Well, 747 out of that number were flagged by Craigslist and removed, leaving only 629 effective ads. Also, 62 Craigslist email accounts were used during the experiment. Looking at the chart, we can see the distribution of effective advertisement over time of the day. The average number of effective ads posted per hour is 26.2, and the standard deviation is 4. The average number of effective ads posted per product category is 157.3 with a standard deviation of 20.2. These are some of the samples of emails that were received by the automated honeypot. The automated engine discovered multiple recurring themes in emails observed in the second or later responses. These scammers would use texts like military member unable to come view product or present for a family member and buyer overseas, pretty much as an excuse. Some were observed using God and religion to invoke a sense of sincerity and empathy from their victims. It was observed that after sending fake PayPal payment notifications, sometimes the scammers would get impatient and urge the victims to send the goods immediately. Sometimes they would even resort to using belligerence and threats against the victim. Also, the scammers, when they did find out they were being tested or scammed, it would result to them using curse words, which somewhat indicates a level of manual operation on their part. Now, based on the result indicating that the top 10 groups are responsible for about 50% of scam attempts, that may be a good place to start tackling this problem. As a future work, the researchers plan to collect more information that enables them to accurately cluster these groups together, leading to them being targeted and dismantled. Now, there most likely is some sort of web of shipping and receiving addresses, both in the US and also in international, that is most likely being used by these scammers. So, attaching a GPS tracking device in a package that is sent back to a scammer would probably help the researchers track down these addresses and give insight on how and where the goods are resold. Remember from a previous slide, the scammers would use various email themes to gain the trust of the victim, or they would result in abusive languages to coerce them. The researchers are proposing that it is feasible to exploit common linguistic features in these scam emails. These patterns might be effectively used to detect scam emails by building improved message filters. This hypothesis would be tested in future works. And finally, there are many clues about the level of automation used by the scammers. As a future work, researchers plan to design experiments focused on gaining more insights into the various tools used by these scammers. To summarize, this paper presented a large scale analysis on targeted Nigerian scams as observed on Craiglist. The researchers learned valuable information on the variety of scam patterns, such as working times, use of automation, and email provider preference of the scammers. I think I think a key finding here was being able to group these scammers based on similar attributes. IP analysis revealed that majority of scammers are located in Nigeria, although there is a small presence in the United States. The paper also went into a bit more details on how to improve future work based on issues they encountered this time. Although no clear solution was specifically provided for this study, I think it's a good first step in identifying some potential points that we may be able to intervene with to deter these scams in the future. I hope this has been an informative study, so please leave a comment or emails if you have any questions. Thank you.